Hi there, this is Grumpy Opinions. Let's get on with the show. Snowpiercer is the TNT show about a post-apocalyptic train driving around a snowy futurescape where everybody's dead. Episode 205, Keep Hope Alive, starts out with the scabby Queen Josie getting all sorts of weird treatments for a nasty frostbite, but she's still using it to her advantage so she can send messages to Layton through a secret laundry cart pipeline with help from the wee Aussie lassie and that tiny little kid. And the Aussie lassie is part of Wilford's book club, and while her and Alex are up there discussing Rebecca, Wilf and his hench lady start discussing something that's going to happen that night, some secret thing, which is kind of interesting, as Josie hears the same thing just before she has a panic attack and gets talked down by Icy Bob, who it turns out is actually really soft-spoken and intelligent. Meanwhile, back on Snowpiercer, things are running mostly as usual, apart from Till, who's going a bit spare and gets told to take the day off, and she ends up almost picking a fight with the Breachman and has a cathartic bit of boxing with the priest, who's totally a bad guy. Elsewhere, Pike gets bonked on the head by the Kingpin janitor and told that he's out the drugs trade, and when Layton tries to straighten things out, it seems that the Janny man knows about the secret info pipeline, which of course isn't good news for anyone. And Zara, who's always been a little bit of trouble, decides to go all Lady Macbeth and tells Layton to convince somebody to do a bit of a murder on Trev, which he does, choosing Pike, who goes along with it even though he thinks it's really dishonourable. But that's not the only controversial thing that Layton's done, because he also manages to get Ruth to lie to everybody about the fact that Melanie missed the uplink probe, which would obviously be kind of bad news to everyone on the train and dishearten everyone. Keep hope alive and all that? Yeah. Meanwhile, Wilford's invited discount Katy Perry to have dinner with them on the Big Alice, so they use that as a bit of an excuse so she can get in there and tamper with some of the technical stuff on his train. Only she doesn't quite manage to do it, and it looks like Wilf notices that she's been fiddling with stuff. But he doesn't really care because he's organised some shenanigans on Snowpiercer, and Josie finds out that it's all to do with the Breachman. So when they rush to arrest them, they find Boki sitting alone in the room. And it turns out that it's not the Breachmen are going to do something, because all the rest of them get murdered by mysterious assailants that night. And right at the end, just as things are starting to go crazy, DKP decides that she's actually better off staying in Big Alice with Wilford. So what did I think? Well, let it never be said that I'm not somebody who's willing to admit when things swing from one direction to another. I mean, as I've said all season, this has actually been a show that's been getting better this season as opposed to what happened in season 1. And largely in one part, it's because we've got a far more comprehensible situation in the show. It's a lot simpler to understand the relationships and situations playing out in the story now that it's basically a tale of two trains who both hate each other and one team's trying to take over the other. Now, sure, I gave a rundown of the main events in the show here, but to be honest, I was kind of barely scratching the surface because this week was crammed with so much stuff happening, and a lot of it character work, a lot of it wee character moments, conversations, that actually I'm kind of amazed that they fit all this into a 45-minute long episode. I mean, this is starting to feel like a novel, in a good way. And not only that, but there was a lot of really decent scenes, some proper good character work. As I said, Icy Bob and Josie, I mean, that was good. Alex getting increasingly cross at Wilford, cleaving to this other woman, like a kind of a teenager who's angry that her dad's got a new girlfriend or something. Or the scene between Pike and Layton, although I do have a crib with this, but I'll get to that later. But total shout out to Stephen Ogg. I mean, Stephen Ogg, who's always been underused in the show, he's a great actor. I mentioned him in my Movies by Month episode way back the beginning of last year for being in the film Solace, which was fantastic. And he never quite seems to get that recognition, but in this show, he's basically been a bit of a random heavy or occasionally just a difficult ally, but now it feels they're really setting him up for being an interesting character moving forward. Complete by giving him a new look so he looks less like a homeless man and more like a shaved head, scary-faced guy going forward. Also, death by expanding phone gun. That's pretty novel, kind of creepy. Bye-bye to that guy. Again, it's kind of interesting because the build-up to the scene where Terrence was killed was really, really interesting because it was edited, so you weren't actually sure who was going to die or what was going on, and you kind of felt like it might actually almost be a hit on Layton. But yeah, I'm not that lucky. And I still like this idea of it being the night of the long knives with the murders of all the Breachmans. And that's been done a million times. It's been done in The Godfather. It's been done in, hell, it was done in the film Elizabeth. But that classic sort of, and then a whole bunch of murders happen and you get to see it intercut all happening at the same time. I mean, yeah, Breaking Bad's probably the big example recently. But I thought they did it pretty well here. And also, interesting just to see that Icy Bob's a nice person. He's not just a giant meathead thug. He's somebody who we really don't understand yet. And clearly he knew that Josie was up to something at the end of the day. But I'm not sure why he took her pills. I mean, I'm sure we'll find that out. But yeah, also, Andre Tricotu, I don't know, who plays Icy Bob, really is genuinely just shy of being 7 foot tall. I mean, I actually thought that shot when he's standing next to her was possibly faked, but no, he is. It turns out he's actually the guy who did all the motion capture work for Colossus in the Deadpool films. So yeah, he really is just a huge guy. Also, there was really nice stuff with Sarah and Ruth talking about hospitality. There was some good chat with the engineers. There was more life on Big Alice, and we actually got to see Osweiler again, because he's been gone from the show for a minute, and to the point I actually wondered for a second how him and Till actually knew each other, and then I remembered, oh, of course, they worked together in season 1. So yeah, it was good to remind me of that. Also, randomly, they did squeeze a huge amount of music into this episode. I mean, they had a cover of House of the Rising Sun, a cover of Street Spirit by Radiohead, and they even had a few bars of Afro Man before that got cut off, which was bizarre. But I've still got a few issues with the show. It's not all perfect. I mean, one was actually just a technical mistake. When they did the ultrasound scene with Zara and Layton looking at the baby, there was genuinely a little baby shape on the screen, and Layton turns around and says,
"That little dot."
No, that doesn't look like a dot, okay? I didn't come across, I mean, again, it didn't come across like he was trying to make a joke or anything like that. It just sounded like they obviously used the wrong graphics for the fake ultrasound, or somebody got the wrong memo about the size of the baby. Or it could just be that Daveed Diggs, who plays Layton, was again just being pretty rubbish in this role. I mean, honestly, he's just not a good actor. He doesn't have enough range to do this show. He comes across like he's out of his depth. And it really doesn't help in scenes like the one where Trevor tells him that he knows Josie is spying on him, where he just looks confused rather than looking like he's thinking about things and conflicted. And it makes the whole scene with him talking with Pike about killing off Trevor doubly annoying, because he's actually working with an actor who really can act and has an interesting personality. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted that scene to have a little bit more weight, and I didn't quite get it because, again, Layton's in it. And because, this whole storyline about the drugs trade, the black market thing, it's been glossed over. And again, there's so much happening on this show that, yeah, sure, they can't cram it all in. But yeah, presumably, I would guess now going forward, Pike is going to take over and be a thorn in the side of Layton because he made him break his own code. They're going to fall out. But we'll see. But I have to honestly say, the one thing that would make me happiest about this show would be if Layton died. And as always, it's the priest. Like, it's so obvious it's the priest. After the speech to Till about after the boxing match, clearly, yeah, he is Mr. Wilford's friend up train. He is the one behind all these bad things happening. But to be honest, with all my major gripes with the show, the one thing I will say is it's actually kind of interesting that the show has improved in some ways with Jennifer Connelly not being in it. And not because she's bad, because she isn't, but having Melanie not on the train actually has changed the dynamic of everything going forward, and it makes the show more interesting because, to be honest, you've always had that sense with her on the story that there's nothing that ever really faces her. Even when things goes wrong, she's so implacable in the way that she actually does things that she always has this veneer of everything being utterly in control, right up to the point where she almost died last season. So I think it's more interesting not having her there. Without her there, nobody else seems quite a match for Wilford, and that's even with Wilford being this sort of half Donald Trump, half Hugh Hefner kind of character that, frankly, I find a little bit silly, but it seems now that actually, yes, he does have a little bit savvy about him. He just doesn't show it very often. But yeah, as I said, I'm enjoying this show quite a bit at this point, as you can probably tell. So till next time, these have been my not particularly grumpy opinions on Snowpiercer. And a special thanks to all my patrons, and most especially my top tier patrons Judith Coloma, Laurie Laporte, and Michelle Forbes. Thanks guys, everyone keep it real, keep safe, and take care of yourselves. Bye bye.